The stars were bright that night, brighter than any Marcus had ever seen. The human ship cut through the black sky, leaving a silver trail behind it as it approached the planet Veora. Marcus stood at the viewport feeling a mix of awe and fear. This was no ordinary planet. It was home to the Azarans, an alien race known across galaxies for their strength, intelligence, and strict codes of honor. For humans, this was more than diplomacy. It was a test of courage. One wrong move, one careless word could spark war. The ship landed with a low hum, shaking the ground beneath their feet. As the hatch opened, Marcus was struck by the sight that greeted him. A massive city stretched before him, built of crystal towers that glowed under twin suns. Creatures of all shapes moved through the streets, their scales shimmering in colors Marcus had no names for. Some were tall and proud with wings like sails. Others moved gracefully on many legs, their heads held high with dignity, but all eyes seemed to focus on a single figure in the center of the plaza, a young Azaran woman. Her violet eyes catching the sunlight and her long, flowing hair rippling like liquid silver. Marcus knew immediately who she was, Princess Lyra, the daughter of the Azaran queen. He felt a strange mixture of fear and admiration. She was not just royalty. She was a symbol of everything his people had come to understand about the Azarans: beauty, grace, and deadly strength. And yet as he watched her, he noticed something human in her eyes. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even wonder. The plaza began to fill with Azarans, their movements precise, almost ritualistic. Marcus's team followed behind him, each step careful, measured. Humans were fragile, soft, and their bodies could not withstand the harsh gravity and environment of Veora for long periods. Every muscle in Marcus's body was tense, ready for the unexpected. Then it happened. A sudden shout rang through the plaza, sharp and commanding. "Who touched my daughter?" An Azaran guard pointed at one of the human diplomats, his voice filled with fury. The crowd froze. Marcus felt a cold weight in his chest. He knew the Azarans could be unforgiving. Accusations against their princess were serious, deadly serious. The queen appeared then, a towering figure adorned with golden scales that caught the sunlight like fire. Her eyes blazed with anger, and her voice rolled like thunder across the plaza. "Who dared to touch my daughter?" she demanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. The crowd fell silent, the tension almost suffocating. Marcus stepped forward instinctively. He did not know if he would be killed for this, but something inside him would not allow anyone, human or alien, to be accused unjustly. He could feel his heart pounding, every breath steady, every thought focused. I did not touch her," he said, his voice firm but calm. "But I will stand here. I will face whatever comes to protect her and to face the truth." Whispers ran through the crowd. Humans had never dared speak to the Azaran queen like this, let alone step forward in defiance of her authority. Princess Lyra's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. She had seen humans before, but never like this. So fearless, so determined, so human. The queen's gaze fixed on Marcus, narrowing as if trying to see inside him, searching for deceit or weakness. But all she found was calm, unwavering resolve. "Defiance? Or foolish courage?" she asked, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. Marcus met her eyes without flinching. "Call it courage," he said. "Call it instinct. But I know humans are not what you expect. We are capable of honor, and I will protect your daughter from harm, whether from my people or yours." Lyra's lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but no words came. She only stared at him, the first hint of admiration in her violet eyes. Marcus did not notice. All he knew was that he had to stand, that he had to show that humanity, fragile though it was, could still be brave in the face of power. The plaza seemed to hold its breath. Every Azaran there waited for the queen's reaction. Marcus's own heart thumped, but he felt a strange certainty. Whatever happened next, he had done what he was meant to do. The plaza was silent now, every eye on Marcus. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if waiting for the queen's next word. Princess Lyra stayed behind her mother, her hands trembling slightly, unsure if she should be afraid or proud. Marcus could see the tension in her violet eyes, but he also saw a spark, a flicker of curiosity, of trust. Growing despite the danger, the queen stepped closer, her golden scales glinting like fire under the twin suns. Her massive form towered over Marcus, her eyes glowing with the power and authority of centuries. "Do you understand what it means to stand before me, human?" she asked, her voice low and dangerous. Do you know the consequences of touching my daughter without permission? Marcus took a steady breath. I know, Your Majesty, and I know I did not touch her, but I stand here because I would face any danger to protect her from harm, and to face the truth. That is what humans do. A ripple went through the crowd. Humans rarely spoke like this. They rarely faced danger so directly. The Azarans were used to bowing, to protocol, to fear, but here was a human who did not bow, who did not flinch. His voice carried courage, and it shook the Queen more than any sword or threat could. Courage, the Queen said, her voice rising. Or foolishness? Do you truly believe a human can claim honor among my people? Marcus held her gaze. I do not just believe it, I know it. Humans are fragile, yes, but we survive and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. Strength is not only in muscle or scales, it is in choices. And I choose to protect her. Lyra's eyes widened at his words. She had been taught that humans were weak, unpredictable, even dangerous. But this man, he was different. He spoke not with arrogance or threat, but with sincerity. And in that sincerity, she felt a strange comfort, a feeling she had never known among her own kind. The Queen's face remained stern, but her eyes lingered on Marcus. Very well, she said finally. If your words are true, human, you must prove them. You must show that your courage is more than talk. You must survive the trial of honor, designed by my ancestors to test the bravest of warriors. Few outsiders have ever succeeded. Most fail and some die. Marcus did not hesitate. I accept, he said calmly. I will do what is necessary to prove my honor. The crowd murmured. Some stepped back in fear. Others leaned forward in curiosity. Even the Queen's guards, armed with weapons sharper than any human could lift, waited to see what would happen. Lyra's heart raced. She could not take her eyes off Marcus. There was a strange mixture of fear and admiration within her. Could this fragile human truly survive a trial that had killed aliens stronger than her father's guards? Could he truly prove that courage and honor were not limited by species? The Queen gestured to the arena. Massive gates opened, revealing a field filled with dangers. Fires blazed, strange creatures prowled, and the ground itself seemed to shift and change. Step forward, the Queen commanded. Show me your truth, human. Show me that you are worthy of standing before my daughter and my people. Marcus stepped forward, every movement deliberate. His mind was focused, his heart steady. He could feel the eyes of the entire crowd on him, weighing him, testing him. But he felt no fear, only determination. As he entered the arena, Lyra watched in silence. She could not look away. There was something remarkable about this human, a stubborn light that refused to be crushed, a spirit that dared to challenge centuries of tradition. Marcus glanced back once, meeting her gaze. A silent promise passed between them: he would survive. Not for glory, not for recognition, but for her, for truth, and for the honor of humanity. The gates closed behind him, echoing like a final drumbeat. The trial had begun, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The gates clanged shut behind Marcus, and the arena fell silent, except for the distant roar of strange creatures. The air was thick with heat and tension. Flames flickered in pits around the field, and the ground beneath him shifted as if alive. Marcus took a deep breath. He had trained for danger, for the unknown, but nothing could have prepared him for the scale of this trial. The first challenge was immediately clear. Fire beasts, creatures with molten eyes and scales that glowed like embers. They prowled in the distance, their claws scraping the ground, sparks flying with every step. Marcus's instincts kicked in. He adjusted his stance, keeping low, moving with precision. Every muscle in his body was alert, his senses sharpened. One beast lunged at him faster than he had imagined. Marcus rolled to the side, feeling the heat singe his arm. He grabbed a fallen metal rod and swung it, not to kill, but to redirect the creature. The beast recoiled, growling, giving him just enough space to advance. He leapt over burning pits, careful not to let his feet slip on the shifting stones. He could hear the crowd, their gasps and whispers echoing faintly through the arena. He knew that every Azaran watching expected him to fail, to fall into the fire, to prove the truth of their belief that humans were weak. But Marcus did not think about failure. He focused only on the path forward, on surviving, on proving that courage was not measured in scales or strength, but in determination. A second creature appeared, larger than the first, with wings that spread wide and a roar that shook the air. Marcus ducked behind a fallen pillar, holding his breath as the beast struck the ground where he had stood seconds before. Sparks and smoke filled the air. He glanced at the orb he carried, Lyra's life symbole. Said in this trial, he had been instructed to keep it safe at all costs. A single mistake would destroy it, and with it any chance of winning the Queen's respect. His mind raced. Humans were not as physically strong as the Azarans, but they were clever, adaptable. Marcus noticed that the beasts hesitated at certain angles of sunlight, reflecting off the arena walls. He used it to his advantage, moving carefully, guiding the creatures away from him while keeping the orb intact. Each movement required focus, agility, and courage, the very qualities the Azarans had underestimated in humanity. Hours seemed to pass. Sweat ran down his face, burns stung, and every step could have been his last. Yet Marcus pressed on, refusing to surrender to fear or exhaustion. The creatures began to retreat, confused by his strategy, frustrated that this human could survive where others had fallen. From the upper platforms, Lyra watched, her heart pounding. She had expected humans to flee, to panic, to fail. But here was Marcus, frail yet fearless, clever yet strong, facing unimaginable danger with a calm resolve that made her breath catch. She realized something in that moment. Strength was more than scales and muscle. It was the courage to face what others could not, the willingness to act when every instinct screamed to run. Finally, Marcus reached the other side of the arena. He set the orb carefully on a pedestal, safe and intact. His chest heaved with exhaustion, sweat and soot covering his face, but he stood tall. The creatures slowly disappeared into the shadows, as if acknowledging his triumph. The silence of the arena was broken only by the murmurs of the crowd. Even the Queen's guards whispered among themselves, astonished that a human could survive the first trial. Marcus turned his gaze upward and, without fear, met Princess Lyra's eyes. She smiled faintly, admiration and awe shining clearly. "I didn't know humans could do this," she whispered almost to herself. Marcus only nodded, his resolve unwavering. "We can," he said quietly, "when it matters most." The Queen's voice rang out across the plaza, deep and commanding. "So the first trial is complete, but the path ahead grows far more dangerous. Are you prepared, human?" Marcus squared his shoulders. "I am," he said. His voice carried certainty. Not pride, not arrogance, only courage. And in that courage, something unspoken passed between him and Lyra. A bond forming, stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. The next challenge awaited. The trial had only begun. The arena seemed to shift as Marcus stepped forward again. The next trial was unlike the first. The ground was now uneven, covered in thick shadows that moved as if alive. Twisting walls rose around him, forming a maze that seemed endless. The sun's light barely reached the ground, and strange whispers echoed from the darkness. Marcus felt the weight of silence pressing on him, heavier than any creature or fire. The maze was not just physical, it tested the mind. Illusions flickered at the edges of his vision. Strange shapes mimicked the faces of his friends, of his crew, even of Lyra herself. Each step brought the temptation to turn, to run back, or to doubt. Many who had entered this maze had lost themselves entirely, wandering until exhaustion or fear claimed them. Marcus clenched his fists and focused. Humans had something the Azarans often underestimated: the ability to adapt, to think in ways unexpected. He relied on his instincts, his training, and a simple truth he carried in his heart. He had to reach the end, not for glory, but to prove that courage and honor could cross worlds. As he moved, a shadow lunged at him. It was not a creature, but an illusion made real by the maze's magic. He ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding its grasp. His heart pounded, but he did not hesitate. Every movement was deliberate, every decision calculated. Marcus had learned that fear was natural, but letting fear control him would mean failure. Far above the arena, Princess Lyra watched from a platform guarded by the Queen's attendants. She bit her lip, unable to look away. Marcus seemed smaller here, fragile in the twisting shadows, yet he moved with such confidence, such determination, that she felt a strange warmth in her chest. He was human, yes, but in that moment he was extraordinary. Marcus paused for a moment in a narrow corridor. He could hear whispers, not in his ears, but in his mind. Voices questioning him, mocking him. He took a deep breath, reminding himself why he was here. Not for recognition, not for fear, not for survival alone, but for honor, and for Lyra. The thought gave him strength. A wall of darkness shifted, revealing another challenge. a chasm too wide to jump with no visible bridge. The whispers screamed that it was impossible, that he would fall. But Marcus's mind raced. Humans were creative, inventive. He found a long, sturdy branch on the ground and used it to steady himself as he inched across the edge, balancing with precision. Every step was careful, every heartbeat measured, but he did not falter. Finally, Marcus reached the heart of the maze, where a glowing orb awaited. The orb symbolized the essence of trust and perseverance, the qualities the Azarans valued most. He picked it up carefully, feeling its warmth pulse through his hands. Success here meant more than winning. It meant proving humanity could meet challenges through intelligence, courage, and persistence. The Queen's voice echoed across the arena. "You have passed the trial of shadows. Few would have reached this point. You continue to prove your strength, human, not only in body but in mind." Marcus straightened, holding the orb with care. He looked up, catching Lyra's gaze. She smiled faintly, pride and admiration shining clearly in her violet eyes. You are incredible," she whispered almost to herself. Marcus's face remained serious but calm. "It is not about being incredible," he said quietly. "It is about doing what is right even when it is hard, even when the world seems impossible." Lyra's heart swelled at his words. She had learned something new about humans today. Strength, she realized, was not measured in scales, claws, or even raw power. It was measured in courage, intelligence, and the will to act when fear would make others flee. The Queen studied Marcus closely, her golden scales catching the sunlight, her eyes unreadable. For the first time, a hint of respect touched her expression. This human, fragile, untested, and seemingly ordinary, had passed trials that had defeated many Azarans. Marcus moved toward the next challenge, his body tired but his spirit unwavering. The trials were far from over, yet he felt a strange confidence. Each step brought him closer to proving humanity's worth, closer to showing the Azarans that courage, honor, and heart were not limited to any one species. And somewhere above, Lyra's eyes followed him, admiration growing into something deeper, something she could not yet name. Marcus stepped forward into the next trial and the air changed immediately. A vast chasm stretched before him, wider than any human could jump. Below, jagged rocks and molten streams twisted like snakes, ready to tear anything that fell into them. The wind howled across the gap, carrying heat and smoke that stung his eyes. This trial was different. It was not just about speed or intelligence. It was about trust, courage, and sacrifice. Marcus knew that one wrong step could mean death. He glanced at the glowing orb in his hands, the symbol of Lyra's safety and the trust the Azarans had placed in him. He took a deep breath, focusing on the moment. Humans were not known for raw strength, but they were adaptable, inventive, and fearless when necessary. Marcus scanned the chasm and noticed a series of jagged stones partially submerged in the molten streams. Carefully, he tested their stability. Some shifted dangerously, but with patience. He found a path that required balance, precision, and courage. Step by step, he advanced, feeling the heat from below, hearing the roar of the molten streams, and sensing the eyes of the Queen and the crowd watching him. His muscles burned, his breath came in short gasps, but he pressed on. Every step required trust in himself, trust in his instincts, and trust that failure was not an option. A sudden gust of wind nearly knocked him off balance. Marcus stumbled, catching himself just in time with a powerful grip on a jagged stone. His heart raced. The chasm seemed impossible, a trap designed to break the bravest warriors. But Marcus refused to falter. With each movement, he reminded himself why he was here, not for glory, not for survival alone, but for honor and for Lyra. Above him, Lyra watched, her heart pounding so fiercely it felt as if it might burst. She had never seen anyone move like this. Humans were fragile, she had been told. But Marcus defied every expectation. Step by step, he crossed the treacherous stones, his focus absolute. He was not the strongest, not the fastest, yet he was fearless in a way the Azarans had not understood. Halfway across, a stone crumbled under his weight. Marcus froze for a heartbeat, then reacted with lightning speed. He jumped to the next stone, barely landing, and kept moving. Every move was a calculated risk. Every heartbeat counted. He could feel the heat below, but he could also feel his own strength, an inner fire that no molten stream could quench. Finally, Marcus reached the final stone. He jumped onto solid ground and set the orb carefully on the pedestal at the edge of the chasm. Exhaustion hit him like a wave. Sweat ran down his face, his body trembled, but his eyes held the same calm determination as when he had first stepped into the arena. He had done it. He had faced the impossible and survived. A cheer erupted from the crowd, some in disbelief, some in admiration. Even the queen remained silent for a moment, her golden scales glinting in the sunlight, her gaze fixed on Marcus. Then she spoke, her voice quieter than before, yet carrying weight. Few have ever crossed the chasm of sacrifice. You have done it, human. You have proven that courage and honor are not bound by species. Lyra ran forward, her violet eyes shining with emotion. She reached him and placed her hand gently on his arm. You are amazing, she whispered. I have never seen anyone so brave. Marcus smiled faintly, still catching his breath. It is not about being brave, he said quietly. It is about doing what is right, even when fear is all around you. It is about standing for someone who cannot stand for themselves. Lyra's heart swelled at his words. She realized that humanity's strength was more than muscle or technology. It was courage, compassion, and the willingness to face the impossible for the sake of others. And in that moment, she felt an admiration deeper than respect, something that could grow into trust, friendship, even something more. The Queen's voice rang across the arena once more. Human, you survive every trial not by luck but by the qualities that I have rarely seen in my people. Continue, and you may yet prove that humanity is worthy of our respect. Marcus straightened, wiping soot and sweat from his face. The trials were not over, but he felt a quiet confidence. Every step he took, every choice he made, was a testament to the heart of humanity. Undaunted, clever, and unbreakable. The arena shifted again. This time Marcus faced a trial unlike any before. Before him lay a platform suspended over a deep abyss, its surface slick and narrow. A glowing bridge appeared, but it was invisible to the eye, only revealed by the warmth of trust and courage. Marcus could feel the weight of the Queen's gaze and the entire Azeran court upon him. One mistake would plunge him into darkness. Lyra watched from above, her heart tight in her chest. She could see the determination in Marcus's eyes, the quiet confidence that came not from strength but from resolve. He moved forward slowly, testing each step, feeling for the invisible path. The whispers of the crowd faded from his mind. All that mattered was the trial, and the promise he had made to protect what was precious. As Marcus advanced, illusions appeared, visions of failure, shadows of falling, whispers of doubt. His mind screamed at him to turn back, to run, to escape, but he remembered the orb, the symbol of trust, still safe at the end of the last trial, and he remembered Lyra's eyes shining with hope and belief. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were capable of faith, of trust, even in impossible moments. A sudden gust of wind threatened to knock him off the platform. Marcus staggered but caught himself, breathing steadily. He thought of the many humans who had faced impossible odds in history, who had risked everything for honor, family, or strangers. He drew strength from that legacy, feeling the fire of humanity burning inside him. The final stretch of the bridge appeared faintly as he stepped forward, only visible when he focused entirely on trust. He put one foot ahead of the other, his arms outstretched, balancing. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity. The abyss below seemed endless, its roar deafening, yet he did not falter. He moved forward with slow, deliberate steps, knowing that each one mattered not just for himself but for the bond forming with Lyra above. Halfway across, a shadow reached for him, an illusion meant to test fear. Marcus did not fight it. He accepted it, acknowledging its presence but refusing to let it control him. This was trust, he realized. Trust in himself, trust in his purpose, and trust in the values that defined humanity. Finally, he reached the end of the bridge. He set his foot firmly on solid ground, the invisible path vanishing behind him. Relief washed over him, but he did not smile yet. He turned toward the Queen, standing tall despite exhaustion, burns, and bruises. He had survived not just with skill, but with heart. The Queen studied him silently, her golden scales shimmering. Then she spoke, her voice softer than before, carrying weight and something almost like admiration. Few humans could endure this. Few would possess the heart, the courage, and the trust needed to survive my trials. You have done what many could not. You honor us, human. Lyra's eyes sparkled as she descended carefully to meet him. She approached with a mixture of reverence and warmth. You are more than I imagined, she said, placing her hand lightly on his arm. Humans, you are extraordinary. Marcus looked at her, his chest rising and falling from exertion. It is not about being extraordinary, he said quietly. It is about standing for what is right, even when fear tells you to fall. It is about trust, courage, and heart. That is what makes humans strong. Lyra smiled, a soft, genuine smile that reached her eyes. For the first time, she saw beyond species, beyond scales, beyond differences. She saw strength in a human heart, a courage that could face anything. And in that moment, she realized that the bond forming between them was not just admiration. It was respect, trust, and the beginnings of something deeper. The Queen's voice rang across the arena one last time. You have passed all trials, human. You have proven that humanity is not weak, that courage and honor are not limited to scales or strength. You have earned our respect, and my daughter's trust. Marcus straightened, exhausted but proud. He had faced fire, shadows, chasms, and fear itself. He had proven that humanity's greatest weapon was not muscle or technology, it was heart. And somewhere above, Lyra's gaze met his, shining with admiration and something more, a promise of connection that no trial could ever break. The arena was silent as Marcus stood before the Queen in the court. The trials were over, yet the weight of every challenge still pressed on him. Sweat and soot covered his face, his muscles ached, and every breath felt heavy. But his spirit was unbroken. He had faced fire, shadows, chasms, and illusions, and he had survived. He had proven that courage and honor were not limited by species. The Queen studied him, her golden scales glinting in the sunlight, her eyes softening with respect. Human, she said, her voice steady, powerful, yet different from before. You have survived what no outsider has before. You have proven that humanity, though fragile in body, is mighty in heart. You honor us. Marcus bowed slightly, as was proper in Azeran culture, though he did not bend too low. It is not honor for myself, Your Majesty, he said quietly. It is the honor of all humans. We face danger, fear, and the unknown because it is the right thing to do. That is what makes us strong. Lyra stepped forward, her violet eyes wide and shining. She reached for his hand, her touch gentle but firm. I have never seen anyone like you, she whispered. Brave, kind, and strong, not just in body, but in heart. You are more than I imagined. Marcus looked at her and smiled faintly, tired but sincere. Strength is not measured by scales, claws, or weapons, he said. It is measured by courage, compassion, and the willingness to act when others cannot. That is the heart of humanity. A murmur ran through the crowd. The Queen's advisors whispered among themselves, astonished. Humans, they had thought, were fragile, unpredictable, and weak. But this one human had walked through every trial, faced every danger, and emerged not just alive, but triumphant. In that moment, the Azerans glimpsed the truth. Humans were extraordinary in ways they could never have imagined. The Queen turned to her daughter, her gaze soft. Lyra, you see now. The human stands before you not as a stranger, but as a being of honor. His courage is beyond what we have known. You may trust him. Lyra nodded, a mixture of pride, relief, and something deeper in her heart. I do, she said softly. I trust him. Marcus felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet triumph that went beyond the trials. It was not about winning or proving himself to the Azarans. It was about showing that humanity could stand tall in the face of impossible odds. That even a fragile human could rise to greatness when guided by courage and honor. The Queen stepped forward and extended a clawed hand to Marcus. Human, you have earned the respect of my people and the trust of my daughter. You have shown us that strength is not only in the body, but in the heart. Welcome to Veora, as an ally, as a friend, and as a symbol of what your kind can achieve. Marcus accepted the hand, feeling the weight of history and the pride of his species in that simple gesture. He knew this moment would be remembered for centuries, not as a human versus alien, but as humanity proving its worth in a universe that often underestimated it. Lyra squeezed his hand gently, a smile brightening her face. You've shown me something I never thought possible, she said. Humans are more than I imagined. Stronger, braver, kinder, and maybe even more extraordinary than my own people. Marcus looked at her, a quiet humility in his eyes. We are all capable of greatness, he said. If we have courage, compassion, and heart, that is what makes humanity strong. The crowd erupted in applause, some in disbelief, others in admiration. For the first time, humans were not outsiders. They were equals, respected and honored. And for Marcus, standing there exhausted but unbroken, it was more than victory. It was proof that the human heart could rise above fear, above doubt, and above any expectation. The Queen's voice carried across the plaza one last time. Remember this day, Veora. Remember the human who dared to walk forward when all feared to stand. Humanity has proven its strength, and its heart shall not be forgotten. Marcus looked out at the crowd, then at Lyra, and finally to the horizon. He knew the journey was far from over, but for today humanity had triumphed, not by weapon,